Hello, friends. Welcome to this week's 30-Minute Thursdays, otherwise known as 30 Mint, where I bring you my weekly dose of fresh ideas and insights that are helping me to perform at my best. From my favorite recovery hacks, training philosophies, and analyzed guest insights, I will come prepared each week in hopes that you can apply these tidbits to your everyday life. Big announcement. The website is officially done. I've finally got it up and running, www.mainideapodcast.com. Visit it, check it out. If you have guest recommendations, if you know people that are looking for partnership and advertising opportunities, everything can be housed and found in the website. You can also join the community mailing list. Why do this? Number one, I hate spam, so I'm not going to flood your inbox with a bunch of BS that you don't want to read anyway. This will give you opportunities to join Ask Me Anythings, products that I'm loving, that I'm using in my day-to-day life that I want to share with the listeners, participate in future events, community-only merchandise. Currently, I'm working on developing some merchandise. I'm not going to say exactly what it is, but rest assured, I have not done a single thing that I said that I was going to do. So you can look for this in the future. That is going to be for community members only. So if you are interested in representing the show, doing your favorite things, join the community list so that you can be on that. And there's opportunities to support the show. If you feel so inclined, you love what I'm doing here, and you want to support it, there's a couple different avenues with which you can do that. I won't beat a dead horse. I'll just let you see for yourself. www.mainideapodcast.com. Share it with your friends and all the people you care about. Now let's get to the show. If you like it, please subscribe so that you don't miss future episodes. And for the true fans, leave a 5-star review on Spotify or YouTube. Today, I'm going to break down how to maintain your fitness in the face of travel. This is such an important episode with the holidays coming up. Many people start to fall off with Thanksgiving, with Christmas, and just kind of look at the next 2 months as a full blur and have hopes of getting everything back together in January. But I'm going to show you how to punch that in the face. Take control of your fitness, maintain your consistency, and do a solid for yourself so you can go and enjoy all this time with your family and not lose sight of your goals. In this episode, you can expect to hear my opinions on creating a travel why, must-do movements when you're traveling, how to establish travel consistency, and my very odd hack for personally driving consistency when I travel to foreign places. I hope you enjoy the show. Travel, the holidays, disruption of fitness routines and regimens. It's one of the most challenging times of the year. It's the time when people that have gotten into their fitness and health routine late in the year tend to fall apart. And it's where many people that have an established fitness routine give themselves a month and a half break. There's just so many moving pieces between plane flights, car drives, coordinating with family members, hotels, travel. It can be a complete conundrum. But there's a couple things to think about that you can take from this trying time of the year and really apply to any type of travel that you have in your upcoming schedule. Travel is something, whether it's for work or pleasure, that is just going to be a component of your life for the rest of your life. So not understanding how to create valuable health and wellness routines within travel will definitely lead to disruption and inconsistencies when you're back home. There's many reasons why I'm a big fan of exercising while I travel, from cardiovascular training, hotel workouts, things like this. But I'm going to tell you in this episode a couple key components to driving this and keeping it not only something that you look forward to, but a staple in your year-round regimen. So we'll start with this idea of creating a travel why. And if you listen to my episode on motivation, purpose and drive are very, very important aspects of maintaining a wellness routine. And that's true for weight loss. That's true for performance. It doesn't really matter. Those factors are massive contributors. You can link the episode in the show notes and listen to that on a separate occasion. But for the purpose of this discussion, I want to focus on the importance of having a reason or a travel why for maintaining your fitness when you're abroad or visiting family. So I started to develop this system because I was working with many C-level executives who spend 50, 60% of their time traveling, mostly to New York, to Chicago, London throughout their annual business cycle. And this can be a major disruptor because when you're traveling that much of your time, what ends up happening is that every time you're back home, you're really just trying to get back to baseline. So you're not able to take a well thought out training program, travel, and at least maintain your output, come back and then pick up where you left off. It's quite the opposite. It's coming back and it's starting again from 2 steps back. So I would work with clients on asking themselves, why is it important for me to travel and train? And sometimes the answer was it's not. It's much more important to be present for those business meetings. It's much more important to be able to stay out late with clients than to wake up and to get something done before the next one. But the reality is that's just not true. It's a perception. And it's a perception hardened by years of doing the same thing and yielding good results. These were successful people who had spent their entire career achieving more and more success. So how am I, a coach, going to go in there and tell them that they need to disrupt that? But what they don't understand that they're missing out on is improving their health, which is going to have an impact on everything else that they do. And I know that this is true because I've witnessed some of these people do it in real time, and the after effects are incredible. I had one client, very specifically remember this, came back from a vacation, and we had established a very specific training regimen for them when they were on business or personal travel. So when they would go, they would have what we will talk about later in the episode, structured out, set up for them. They just go, they knock it out, and they move about their day. One of the exercises that we were working on in their private program was Turkish get-ups. They happened to have kettlebells when they went to this hotel, and they were working out, and they were doing Turkish get-ups, which at the time for this person was really a step in an incredible direction. This was a new movement for them. Training while they were traveling was recently new. And while they were doing this, the CEO of their entire company happened to walk into the hotel gym and ask them about this. Now think about that. You're working for a majorly successful company, and there's quite a big gap between where you are and the CEO. And you're doing an exercise from your training program when you don't have to, and they happen to walk in and they ask you about it because what you're doing looks interesting, it was a conversation that they couldn't have had in any other capacity. And it bridged this massive unknown gap between them, and it was 100% the product of them creating consistency in their routine, finding the time to get it done, and then having the drive and the determination to do it because their why when they were traveling was so great that it overstepped any other requirements. It never affected their business meetings. It never took away from their ability to perform in their job. It actually just heightened it all. So for this person, finding this why of they wanted more energy, they wanted to have more clarity, and they wanted to feel good about themselves before they went into their meetings. So this is one person's example. That's their why. Yours doesn't have to be the same. But the point is that they had a purpose, and the purpose drove them to do the thing. Having a plan is great, but when you get off a 6-hour flight and you're tired and you know you have a meeting in the first thing the next day, if your why is not very strong, you're just going to skip the workout, period. It's super easy to not do it. It's super easy to say, I don't really like the gym that this hotel has. It's so easy to say, the gym down the street's just too far, it's too cold this time of year, whatever it is. It's also really easy to just not do research, not find any gyms close by in the absence of a hotel facility. So having this why for a high-frequency traveler like this person, whose travel was largely dependent on business, became this X factor that trumped all their other desires, and it basically put them in a position to where they always executed this plan. And that person lost 100 pounds over the first year that we trained. 100 pounds. That's insane. When you really think about the changes that have to occur mentally for someone to make that kind of weight loss. That's not going from being in good shape to being super cut. That's going from being obese to being in a healthy position. That's major life risk factors to being able to live a longer life. It's a drastic change. And this was one of the biggest driving factors of that, is maintaining output while traveling. This will give you control over your time. And that is a big thing that I notice with people that travel for business is You're on somebody else's time. That's why you're traveling in the first place. You're traveling to go to do business in a different place where you don't live. And that doesn't mean it could be asymmetrical. It could be 100% for your benefit. But you have to go be on someone else's time, whether that's literally a different time zone or you're meeting them for meetings, lunches, late dinners, things that you wouldn't normally do if you were home. So establishing this hour or hour and a half that's a staple in your travel routine gives you control over your time. And having that sense of control can help you better prepare for presentations, meetings, lunches, dinners, whatever. It can give you a leg up on the competition, so to speak. And this isn't even touching, and I won't touch on it, the physiological benefits of exercise that they give us. Things that can improve your ability to be present and effective in a meeting versus lethargic and cloudy. So creating this travel why is a really important part. I think it's important because it's unique to every person. Everybody travels for different reasons. Everyone travels with different frequency, and everyone needs to have a different why that's personal to themselves so that when they travel, they choose to exercise. Or as you get better at it, your default is to exercise, and then you choose everything else that you do. So that's the value of creating a travel why. Next, I want to talk about must-do movements. So if we think about the typical person training on a program at a gym, you have access to a lot of equipment. You know where the equipment is. You know how to use it. If you're training with a coach or a trainer, they're walking you through a lot of things. They're showing you, they're demonstrating, they're setting equipment up for you. It's a very passive experience in some cases. When you work out on your own, traveling, the location's going to be different. The environment's going to be different. The equipment's going to be equipment you probably haven't used before. They're not going to have certain things that you're used to having. And so it can become very overwhelming if you're not willing to improvise, creative, and focus on hitting these next couple of things that I talk about, which are essential movements that you have to do when you're traveling. I'll give you a little bit of the why behind them. So if we can just picture travel in general for most people, it's going to involve one of four things: a boat, a plane, a train, or a car. And basically, except for boats, if you're walking around the whole time that you're on the boat, you're going to be seated for most forms of travel. And for most forms of travel, you're going to be seated at least an hour to an hour and a half plus, right? If you're doing a coast-to-coast flight, you got 6 hours. Time spent seated is time spent with your hips flexed. Time spent seated most of the time, unless you have insanely good posture, is time spent with your shoulders rolled forward and your head craning down. So all that weight of your head and your shoulders is stressing on your spine. It's no surprise that people get up and they feel funky after long fights. They don't sleep super well that night. Their back starts to ache. One of the most important things that you do when you get to do your travel program, and this is really a restorative practice, this is something to keep you at baseline, get you back into a healthy, better posture, is to do something that involves hip extension. Hip extensions are going to be banded hip lifts, RDLs, deadlifts, single leg deadlifts, from the floor hip bridges, single leg hip marches, anything that gets your hips forward, pushing your belt or your waistline forward in extension and gets your glutes and your hamstrings to engage and support that. The main reason for this is that it's the opposite of what you've done for the entire time that it took to get you to the place where you are now working out in a different city. So hip extension, number one, must be part of the training program. If you're going to do hip extension and you're going to load it, it's very important that you warm up properly. You want to put your body in a position where it's ready to do that because, again, you've been seated for a long time. The worst time, in essence, to pull a deadlift is to step up out of a chair and then do it. You want to prime your body, get it ready, open your hips up, get some blood flowing, do some active straight leg raises or anything that creates more length in the hamstring and allows you to get into flexion with good posture, and then do the lift. Keep it moderate. You don't need to set a PR when you're doing a hotel workout. You just need to hit the consistency of getting the training session done so that you can get on with your life, go about your business day, what have you. Get time away from your family, whatever you need. it's important that you take your time to get ready for that. Next, you want to push, you want to pull, you want to do some core stability, and you want to do something cardiovascularly challenging. The reason I say these things, one, from a postural viewpoint, it's important to have balance. For that reason, I do recommend doing 2 pulls per push. So if, for example, you want to do chest press when you get to a hotel, make sure you do 2 rows in accordance with that. Whether that's a lat pull-down machine, a seated cable row, a one-arm dumbbell row, a double dumbbell row, anything that does 2 pulls for every push. Just because posturally, you want to double the tension in the muscles behind your body compared to those in front of your body. Now, that is a very general view of that. So if you want to go into detail, don't roast me online, just reach out to me and we can talk in depth about why that's really important. Again, that is a general view of this, muscles behind, muscles in front. It's much more complicated than that, but for the conceptual understanding of this, 2 pulls to 1 push. Core stability. You want to work on your core strength because, again, on the plane flight, on the train ride, on the boat ride, in the car, you're just in a poor postural position. Unless you are a lunatic, and I don't even put myself in this bucket, you're not sitting with great posture, as I literally adjust my posture as proof that I wasn't sitting posturally in a good position. You're probably not sitting in a good posture when you're moving around. So doing something that is core stability focused is a great way to do something restorative, to still get good work in, but also do something for your body that's going to benefit you out in the world. We all could use more thorough core strength, better core stability, and an ability to take that core stability and then utilize it in the things that we love to do. Next, you want, like I said before, cardiovascular conditioning. This is good for your heart. This is good for any of the things that you like to do. It's good for raising your aerobic base so that you don't get as winded doing other strength training exercises. Cardiovascular equipment is in abundance. If a hotel is going to build a gym, they're probably going to do 2 things. 1, they're going to put a treadmill in there or an elliptical, and 2, they're going to put a bench in there with some dumbbells. That's the most bare bones setting that you can find in a hotel gym, unless you happen to be staying at this hotel that we were staying in Munich, which has to date the most strange hotel gym I've ever been in my life. It was a mix between a bad art project and a balsa wood project. Story for another time, but from traveling all around the world for my whole life and spending the last decade making sure that I exercise while I do that, you're going to find a bench, you're going to find a set of dumbbells, and you're going to find a treadmill. The further you go overseas, the stranger this extra random piece of equipment will be that you find. Like when we were in Da Nang in Vietnam, they had the strangest tower of pulleys and bars and chairs, and it took me 15 minutes just to figure out how to look at the thing, let alone sit in it. So that's the strangest other gym that I've been into in terms of piece of equipment go. So you're going to have a bench and you're going to have a treadmill. Take what is in the gym, assess how many people are there, work around others. Don't feel like you have to get a certain thing done right away. And if you do this first, then that second, then your workout's out of order and now it's not worth it. Anything that's just going to frustrate you, let it go. Let it go. Let the focus be getting the thing done, getting in there for an hour, doing your training session, maintaining the best consistency of pace that you can throughout the whole process, and work around people. Other people are there too doing the same thing. Some hotels' gyms are going to be incredible. Sometimes there's no hotel gym. And this is where planning comes in. So when you travel to a new place, it's oftentimes that the hotels, depending on the area, don't even have a gym in them, in which case you have to find one. And I will admit, this gets harder and harder the further you go from the United States. The more westernized the country, the more common it is that there's going to be gyms around. But when we were in, man, I can't even think of a good example. But when we were in Hanoi, again, going back to Vietnam, it was extremely difficult to find a gym. When we were in Cambodia, we actually found a gym, and it was insane that they even had one in Siem Reap and that they allowed people to come in and just do a day membership. So if you're really motivated and you can find it, they're there. But a lot of times, the hotels will not be equipped, and so you have to go and look around. So planning becomes your best friend for driving consistency. If you know your why and you have a reason for training when you're traveling, then you have to plan for training when you're traveling. This comes down to planning what you're doing. So downloading an app that has fitness programs in it, checking out www.getskisystem.com and signing up for one of the best online strength and conditioning systems for skiers that's on the web and using that programming, checking out Juggernaut AI, Juggernaut Training Systems, BJJ, Bulletproof for BJJ. There's so many different apps for every single sport that anyone ever plays that can sit in your phone and have your preparation done from a programming side. So knowing what you're going to do, knowing where you're going to do it, and knowing when you're going to do it become extremely important, because without those factors, you're just doing a dice roll. Something's going to come up. Your meeting's going to get moved at 30 minutes earlier. The hotel's not going to be out of coffee. Whatever it is, there's going to be a million reasons why you can just not do what you said you were going to do. But if you take your training sessions and you put it in the most controllable time of day, the first hour that you wake up, and you get it done then people can jack up your whole meeting schedule as much as they want. It's never going to even affect you. And at the end of the day, you got to win right when you woke up, because you did what you said you were going to do and you planned it out accordingly. This can be true, of course, for business, but this can also be true with family and friends. If you're traveling on a bachelor party and you know that you're going to have a serious weekend, but you want to do something to hedge your bets and feel a little bit better about yourself, you can schedule to do a run when you get to the place that you're going an hour before all your friends wake up. No one will ever blame you. No one will ever give you a hard time. No one will ever mess with your time, and no one will ever reschedule over you if you take the first hour of the day and set it for the time that you're going to get your training done. It's the most controllable. More control, more consistency. Less control, more up in the air. More up in the air, way likely that you won't do it. So planning becomes very important. Knowing distance becomes very important. When I was training these clients who were C-level execs with very important business meetings, we would look at, one, where the gym is, how long is it going to take them to get there? Because these people are scheduled down to the minute. So knowing that became really important, because if they needed to schedule a town car or an Uber or a taxi or rent a city bike, whatever it is, all this had to be figured out before they even left Los Angeles. Because if we tried to figure it out when they get there, it just doesn't work. So having this all done, down, pat, in your notes, in your calendar, whatever it is, get it done before you leave. If you have to have flexibility in that, because you truly cannot control any part of your day, then give yourself a break. Give yourself the flexibility. Give yourself flexibility over days. So instead of going, this has to get done on Monday, if you're on a 4-day business trip, you just say 2 have to get done at any time. So you still do the planning, you still find the locations, you still find the time, but you give yourself a little bit more leniency on when and where it gets done, because that seems to be a variable that you can't control. But again, this is all housed under the umbrella of planning. Knowing that you don't have control over your schedule is an element of finding consistency within your day, within your week, and within the time that you're there. So that becomes a really important part. You can do that by yourself. You can use apps online. You can use scheduling apps. You can talk to a friend who's a trainer or a coach, or speak with someone at your local gym and ask questions. If you don't know how to do this kind of thing, reach out to me. I'm happy to help you figure it out. I've done it for over a decade, and it is really a driving force in people finding success in their routines when they're on the road. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this strange hack that I have. And without planning this, I actually happen to be wearing an example of this exact thing. So we've traveled all over the world. I've trained in so many different countries. And then when I took on jiu-jitsu, it became a very fun aspect of travel for me, because sometimes, for whatever reason, I wasn't able to get into a training facility. Maybe the CrossFit boxes closed at the time that we were there, or the hotel gym hours were weird before we had to get on our next train. And one thing that became very fun was to try to find a jiu-jitsu academy that I could train in on the road. I love doing this for a couple of reasons. For this sport specifically, although this is also true to some degree for CrossFit, is getting in another academy and training with other people is a great way to test your skill. And that doesn't mean you have to be a prick and go in there and try to beat people up or get in fights. It's just a good time to be out of your comfort zone, away from the people that you know how they train, away from your routine, away from what's comfortable, under the eyes of a different instructor, and test. How does all your skill transfer? Where does it show up? What do you forget? What do you panic? Like, does your ego still get involved? Do you not like getting smashed by people that aren't from your academy? Does that actually bother you? Can you work through that? There's so many different questions that get answered when you go and you train somewhere else. I say this is true for CrossFit because I've been able to do CrossFit workouts with my dad in many different cities, and you find just a different style, a different grit, a different work ethic, a different structure, and it challenges you in a way that maybe being at your home box doesn't, or running the exercise program by yourself doesn't challenge you. So what makes this fun, and this is why I think it's a silly but useful little hack, is after. It has to happen after, because I've seen people do this where they don't even train and then they do this, which I find strange, but I'm sure they have a reason. You do the training session, you do the workout, you join the group fitness class, you sign up at the gym, you go to the local CrossFit box, you jump in training at the academy, whatever it is. And then when you're done, you buy a shirt or you buy a hoodie like I did when I was in Kauai. Here's why this is fun, because to some degree, it's like a little souvenir of your commitment to your own routine. It's a way to remember that when I go to Hawaii for weddings, friends' weddings, I make time to drive 20 minutes, sign up at a local academy, pay the drop-in fee, train with the people there, slap hands and say thank you and have this incredible experience, and people giving you recommendations for local surf spots or where to eat or whatever. And then you have this token that reminds me, every time I put this hoodie on, as silly as this is, it reminds me that when I had the opportunity to just not train, I chose not to. I chose to go do it. I chose to maintain my routine, to maintain my consistency, and to participate in something that I love to do in another city where I'm destined to meet like-minded people who are also doing that on the same day. I did the same thing when I went to Mammoth last year to break up the drive, and I got to train at, I think it's High Sierra Jiu-Jitsu. It's in Bishop. And I went in there. This is so funny. I went in there. It started snowing so crazy. We're training. It was awesome training, small group of people. And at the end, I'm like, I don't think I can get up to Mammoth because the roads were closed. And they had been closing and opening and closing and opening. This guy came up to me and he's like, hey, man, I work for CHP. And if you want, I can call the station and we can get like a live update. And I was like, wow, that's so like such a generous thing that would, I never would have pulled this guy over and been like, hey, can you call the station? It was a gesture because I dropped in to train that day. And when you train and you work hard with people, you have the opportunity to gain their respect, and that happens both ways. And so this person who I never knew before called into the station, got me a bunch of really valuable information on when I could or could not drive up, the road conditions, the likelihood that it would close, where they're closing it. And then these other people came up and they're like, hey, man, if it doesn't work out, we got couches, you can stay here. And I was like, man, this is wild. I just showed up here to maintain my frequency and train consistently. And that potentially saved me from being stuck in a snowstorm if I really needed it to. So you never know what kind of connections you're going to make, the people that you're going to meet, friends, future friends that you may meet, as a result of keeping up your training routine. Now, that example lies within jiu-jitsu, but it's not siloed to jiu-jitsu. This can happen when you're just training at another commercial gym. It could happen when you're on a run in a park that you've decided to run in a city that you're new to because you're maintaining your fitness routine. So you really open yourself up to this whole world of connection and opportunity because you're part of the club. You're deciding to maintain your health and your fitness despite traveling. And many, many, many people do not make that choice. They really don't. They just go, I'm on vacation. And they let it slide. So choosing to participate, choosing to plan, choosing to get movements done, and choosing to do this all while being a high-frequency traveler or someone on a vacation, it really starts to set you apart. I truly believe that. And it sets you apart on a personal level. I think it is very motivating and uplifting to know that you're doing something solid for yourself on a health and fitness level while you're being able to experience incredible other places all over the world, or while you're going in and you're landing a major deal that you've been working super hard on for the company that you work for, or for your own business. Whatever it is, you're taking control of your life and you're doing something because your why is big enough and it matters. That's why I think that it is extremely important to train when you travel. So, the next time that you're going to go somewhere, the next time that you're planning a trip, the next time that you're getting sent somewhere for business, ask yourself, how many of the days that you would typically be training are you going to miss? How many are you comfortable making up for? And then start planning. What are you going to do? Where are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? And when is your first obligation that you have to get to? And give yourself a little bit of freedom to do the most you can without feeling like you got to get everything done that you would normally do. Sometimes when I get to a hotel gym and I see what they have, I know I'm not having the same training session. They don't have a barbell. Okay, all my barbell exercises are out. But what can I do? I can't back squat, but I can grab dumbbells and I can front squat. There's always an option. And there's this website called YouTube that is chocked full of substitute exercises. If you ever don't know what to do, search in YouTube, what should I do if I can't do this? Which exercise is a good alternate for X? If I don't have a dumbbell but I have a kettlebell, how do I do X? There are so many hundreds of thousands of videos of people doing these exact math problems for your travel. It's so easy and you'll know exactly what to do and you just move on. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode, another 30-minute Thursdays. A quick reminder for those of you that are still here listening to this. One, thank you so much. You are the reason that I keep doing these. You are my consistent motivation and my drive to get these episodes done every single week and turn them out. And it really means the world to hear from people that have been listening to the show, to get those outreaches, messages, stuff like that. So thank you to those of you who send them. For anyone listening, check out the website, www.mainideapodcast.com. Give me a fake email and join the community, or give me a real email if you really care. Find out about Ask Me Anything, products that I'm loving, I'm using that I'll seed to the audience, future events, community-only merchandise, and opportunities to support the show. It really means the world to have you tuning in every week, and I can't wait to see you guys next week. Enjoy the weekend.